tell me, who is Dany Garcia to those that don't know you?
Oh my goodness, I don't know, Ed, you covered it so well. I would say Dany Garcia, chairwoman of the Garcia companies, and I am fortunate enough to be an entrepreneur, a CEO, a founder, a co-owner of an incredible sports league. And I think the overarching thing is I consider myself an athlete of life, which allows me to go to many, many different places and do many things very powerfully.
One of the reasons that I wanted you to come on the program is, you know, we are familiar with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You know, I've covered WWE. We know him as a movie star. But actually, increasingly, people become familiar with him through his use of social media. And actually, you know, my knowledge of Terramana, for example, or the skincare range that he now has is because he's very active on social media. What role do you play in that strategy, in making sure that each of the companies are out there on the socials?
Well, you know, first of all, Dwayne and social media are synonymous. My role is I oversee how the brands are showing up and how they're connecting with the consumers, how they're connecting with the audience, and how they're connecting and truly reflecting the ethos of who DJ is. Social media is always one of our important media outlets. Dwayne is very involved and very direct on how he shows up and what that tone is. And I make sure that it's aligned to the companies and also aligned to all of the other companies in the portfolio. So there's lots of interconnectivity. My goal is to make sure that the strategy is working and it's holistic.
Would it be fair to say that Dwayne would not have had the success he's had, and you would not have had the success you had without social media?
I would say it's very, very fair. I mean, Dwayne's affinity towards social media right at the beginning of its, you know, right in the initial parts where he really, really doubled down, allowed him to reach a global audience and speak to them directly. So he has a very transparent relationship, and that's why his accounts continue to grow and grow and grow. But it absolutely has had a massive impact on reach, and most importantly, on connectivity.
Dany, you are the first female sports league owner, and I wanted to spend some time on that. I guess that if you look at XFL and USFL, that marriage wouldn't have happened if everything was completely rosy. You know, there must have been some underlying issues. Just give me the backstory of how that came about in your role.
Oh, no, absolutely. Well, you know, I think it's such a, when people ask about that, if you're starting a spring league, you want to take a look and say, okay, where are leverage points? How can I accelerate what I'm doing? And the XFL, which we launched, obviously, we had our first season. Last year, the USFL was having their second season. We met all our markers. We were very, very successful and happy with our reach and our engagement, the way our athletes were playing. And simultaneously, the USFL was making great grounds, right? This is their second time out. But our interests and the ability to say, okay, what happens when we leverage these powerhouses of ownership? Because we're talking Fox, Disney, ESPN, myself, Dwayne Johnson, Redbird Capital, all of a sudden became very clear we could do so much more.
Dany, this is Bloomberg Technology, and so we go straight to the streaming part of this business.
Yeah.
You know, there's a traditional broadcast component, but I wonder of which you're most excited.
As far as, for all of, you know, which portion of our distribution?
Yeah, growing an audience distribution. You know, it's going to be an interesting experiment.
Well, absolutely. So I'm excited. Well, I would have to say, if you look back, obviously, at our history, I'm very excited about how the UFL, not only with our traditional broadcast partners, which is fantastic, but how we're embracing it and bringing our content and creating content specifically for a digital platform, whether it's social media, through YouTube, etc. It allows us to really deeply connect with our audience, listen to them, engage, and be very, very innovative and nimble there. We do a tremendous amount of our storytelling at that. That's where we get very, very granular, and that helps us to grow our audience in our new markets. So it's very important.
Dany, what's next? How much capital do you have to play with to go into a new industry? You know, I won't list them. We don't have time. But alcohol, salt and straw, you know, skincare, sports, production. What is the next frontier that you want to move into?
Well, you know what? I continue to be really, and I'll speak for myself personally, I continue to be extremely focused and excited about sports. I'm excited about sports in general, women's sports in general. That's something that I'm doing quite a bit of research on and see myself leaning heavily in that area.
Okay, tell me about the company. At least give me a sense of what industry the company's in.
Well, which industry the company will be in? Well, no, the company is going to be in sports. The industry is going to be sports. Do you want to get particular, like which sports? Because I won't share that just yet. But I would give you this example. The 360 approach that we have brought to the UFL, the way we're approaching that, would be a blueprint to how I look at my other investments that will happen in sports. In addition, we'll continue to grow $7 production and expand that media slate and our distribution ability there. That's extremely exciting. So I would say the emphasis you would see, entertainment, sports, that really feels where I'm looking.